The content in this video is for general educational use. It does not represent political opinions or judgments about any country, culture, or government. Information is based on publicly available sources and may be summarized or simplified. Viewers should verify details through multiple sources.
You picture the United Arab Emirates. What comes to mind? Probably towering skyscrapers, right? Maybe vast oil wealth. But, beneath that super shiny surface, there's a nation on the absolute front lines of the climate crisis. And they're crafting this ambitious and, honestly, surprising blueprint for their own survival. Okay, so it all kind of kicked off with a real shock to the system. Back in 2024, a storm just dumped 250 millimeters of rain. I mean, that's the most ever recorded there, and it happened in less than 24 hours. We're talking about one of the driest places on the planet. And suddenly, massive flash floods brought the whole country to a standstill. It was this powerful, you can't ignore it sign that, yeah, the climate has definitely changed. So that brings up this huge question, right? How does a nation that was literally built on oil wealth get ready for a post-oil world? A world where the climate has gone haywire? What's their game plan? All right, so to really get their strategy, we've got to first understand the incredible environmental pressure the UAE is under. And this isn't just about one crazy storm. It's about a whole new climate reality they're facing. And the biggest pressure point, not just for the UAE, but for the entire Arab region, really boils down to one thing: water. Or, more accurately, the severe lack of it. This scarcity is basically the main driver pushing them to act, and act fast. And look, the numbers here are pretty shocking. The World Bank tells us this region has less fresh water than anywhere else on Earth. And for more than half the countries here, it's not just a tough situation, it's what they call absolute water scarcity. So let's look at Tunisia for a second, just as an example. What you're seeing on this chart, that gap between how much water people need and how much is actually available, it's not just big, it's getting wider and wider. Demand is just skyrocketing, while the supply, well, it's staying dangerously low. This is basically the crisis in a picture. So that term we just mentioned, absolute water scarcity, it's not just a dramatic phrase. It has a very specific definition. It's the tipping point where the annual water supply drops below 500 cubic meters per person. And when that happens, it seriously messes with human life and, any kind of economic development. This isn't some far-off problem for millions of people. It's happening right now. Okay, so faced with this pretty grim reality, the UAE isn't just throwing up its hands. They're responding with some really radical innovation. And one of their most famous experiments is Masdar City, a project that's kind of amazing because it looks to the past to design the city of the future. And the core idea here isn't just about a bunch of flashy tech. Like the World Bank points out, the architects behind Masdar actually started by studying how people managed to survive in this climate for centuries. They literally looked to ancient, traditional building techniques for sustainable answers. And in real life, this is what it looks like. The architecture isn't just there to look cool. Every single curve, every screen, it's all functional. It's a concept called passive design. Basically, the building itself does most of the work to stay cool. That way, you're not so reliant on all that energy-hungry AC. The strategy here is pretty brilliant, and it comes down to three things. First, they pack the buildings super close together. This creates these narrow, shaded alleyways, just like you'd find in an old traditional city. Second, the streets are aligned perfectly to catch and channel the wind, creating this natural cooling breeze. And third, they place windows strategically to get as much natural light as possible without getting blasted by the direct heat of the sun. It's simple stuff, really, but unbelievably effective. And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. We're talking a nearly 40% reduction in energy demand compared to your standard modern buildings. By mixing that old school wisdom with new school engineering, they've built a city that's just fundamentally more efficient. It's incredible. But the UAE's strategy is about more than just building these futuristic cities. There's a whole other track, an equally important effort to protect the natural ecosystems that have been here for thousands of years. And these efforts are really focused on two major fronts. You've got the iconic desert landscapes on land, and then you have the beautiful but super fragile marine ecosystems just offshore. So out in the desert, the main attraction is the Dubai Desert Conservation Reserve, or DDCR. And to give you an idea of the scale here, this one reserve protects 5% of Dubai's total land mass. It's a massive sanctuary for native wildlife, like the amazing Arabian oryx. And out in the water, their commitment is just as serious. In fact, the UAE now ranks #1 in the world for its number of marine protected areas, or MPAs. These are absolutely vital safe zones for sea turtles, dugongs, and those precious Gulf coral reefs. And when they say protected, they mean it. These areas have incredibly strict rules. You can only anchor in certain spots, jet skis are a big no-no, and you absolutely cannot discharge any sewage. You can't even collect shells or corals. The rules are designed to make sure these sanctuaries are truly left alone to thrive. Okay, so we've seen the innovative city, we've seen the ambitious conservation work. But how does this all connect? How does it fit into a bigger picture? Well, this is where we zoom out and look at the national blueprint, the strategy that ties all of these individual projects together. All right, the big headline goal is super ambitious. They're aiming for a 40% cut in economy-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This is part of what's called their Nationally Determined Contribution, or NDC. That's the formal climate plan that countries submit under the Paris Agreement. And let me tell you, for a major energy-producing nation, a 40% cut, that is a massive undertaking. So how are they going to pull this off? This chart breaks it down. No surprise here, the energy sector is doing the heaviest lifting. The plan is to cut its emissions almost in half. But check this out. Look at that bottom slice for agriculture and land use. The goal there isn't just to reduce emissions, it's to make it a net sink, meaning it will actually absorb more carbon than it releases. And these big targets aren't just numbers on a page. They translate into real-world projects you can see and touch. For instance, a huge part of hitting their 47% reduction target for transport is a massive investment in public transit, like the Dubai Metro. The goal is simple: get more cars off the road. And at the end of the day, this whole national blueprint loops right back to where we started, that core vulnerability: water. A central piece of their whole climate plan is the Water Security Strategy 2036. The goal? To slash total water demand by 21%. It's a full circle recognition that in this new climate, managing your water means managing your survival. So what we're looking at is this incredibly comprehensive, multi-layered strategy that was really born out of pure necessity. And it kind of leaves us with one big final thought to chew on. As the entire planet starts to deal with a hotter, more extreme future, is it possible that the survival plan being built by one desert nation could actually provide a blueprint for the rest of the world?